Hey, so last week I did a much longer video that was actually about building a what I call a look at system, where you're in the first person character in Unreal Engine. You can go and actually look at different objects and also selecting them so that only certain objects can be looked at, aka if they have an interact actor tag. Now let's say that we wanted to expand that a little bit and just really simply make it so you click a button, say the E button, and then you actually trigger an interaction with them. Well, let's think about how to do that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually leverage this interactable tag in a second, but first thing is we need an input. With the first person character, which I'm just gonna lean on, we have a couple of different actions here. We have jump, look, move, and then shoot. Shoot is not being used inside this mapping context. The default context is what's being used right now. Then you switch to this IMC weapons, which happens whenever you actually run over the first person gun that's in the first person level, and then you see it adds the shoot mapping, the shoot input onto the mapping context that you have. So essentially you have two mapping contexts. Now I don't really like that necessarily, so I'm just gonna add a new action. What I want to add is an interact action, and simply I'm actually gonna do exactly what this shoot is, which is just a Boolean, and it takes it so that it's pressed. So you press it once and you're not going to worry about holding it, I'm pretty sure is what that means for the trigger on this input, on this enhanced input action mapping. So if you need more lessons about enhanced input, there's plenty of videos on YouTube about it. It's something I can cover if you have any interest in it. So I'm sort of assuming that you have an understanding about this. If you don't, then just figure out however your system works so that you click a button and it triggers something on an actor, and then skip to the part in the video here in a few minutes where I'm actually going over that. But to get this working, I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to call it IA Interact. And let's go click on it, make sure it's all good to go. It's a digital, or it's a Boolean, and then we're going to save it. And then inside our mapping context here, inside the default one, we're going to add a new one. And then we can add our interact, and we want this to be on the E button. So now inside our first person character, we should be able to interact. Where's it at? This is the right one. So we don't want it on triggered, we want it on started. Actually, since we have pressed, actually triggered might work. Let's check it out. So we should see hello being printed to the screen. I'm gonna click E. Yep, and I'm holding and it doesn't, so because it's pressed, it doesn't stay triggered. If you don't have that pressed trigger within the action, what is it? What is this called? Not the action mapping, it's the action digital asset. If you don't have this pressed here, what happens is if you hold E, it continues to trigger basically on tick. This makes it so that you press it, you release the button, press it, release it, and that's going to trigger the trigger, right? So started and trigger are basically going to do the same thing, I'm pretty sure, in this instance. So we're gonna have this run on trigger. Now let's see if this actually works the way that we think it does. Let's make sure that we, instead of like looking, let's turn off the look at tick for a moment, and let's just see if we can get the items to display whenever we click the E button. So I just want to make sure this is working. Oh, so we have the text block down there. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's not working exactly how I imagined it because we didn't build the system to operate like this. We built the UI system at the bottom to actually work on tick. So, but yeah, it's being triggered. So what I think we should do is basically take most of this logic. We are going to do a line trace. We are going to see if they are interactable. We're not going to worry about all this name stuff because that's simply to display it on our UI. So I'm going to take the same logic. You could probably repurpose this if you wanted to by turning it into a function. I'm not going to worry about that in this video. We'll worry about optimization later. But what we'll do is we will draw a line trace exactly how we had it before. So it's going to be interacting with all these different objects, world dynamic pond, physics bodies. It's going to come from the first person camera. It's going to go out 500 units. And then we're going to see if we actually get an interactable actor. Then if we do, what we can do is trigger something on that interactable actor. So let's actually build a class. So I'm going to go here to blueprints. I'm going to make a new class, and I'm going to just do an actor, and I'm going to call this interactable actor. Not a great name. You would want to build a better system for this if you're actually building out like some sort of a system where you want to have a bunch of descendant children that are that all inherent from the interactable actor. I'm just going to have one interactable actor, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an interactable pawn. I'm going to show how you can still use the same trigger mechanism I'm about to show you on different class types. So we have our interactable actor. Let's just give him a static mesh. And no, let's not give him a static mesh. Let's give him a cube. So I'm just going to give them something so that you can actually see them in the scene. And then let's place this in the scene. And one more thing we want to do is we want to give it the actor tag that we gave them in the last video. So if you didn't see the last video and you're confused, go and check out the last video. But at the end of it, we put an actor tag here called interactable. So whenever we draw this line trace, we can see if we want to interact with them through the actor tag. Now I think we're going to be able to just, yeah, see, we're seeing interactable actor. It's exactly what we wanted. So we can actually look at our new actor. But let's say that whenever we click the E button, we want to trigger something on this actor. So we could do the long way about it. What we could do is say, okay, if they have the interactable tag, then we want to do a Boolean. This first Boolean is coming out of if you hit anything at all. We went over in the last video why you don't want to combine these to an AND Boolean. You get some null references, which is no good. But let's say that you want to do this, then we could cast to interactable actor. Then on the interactable actor, we could plug that actor into the object. And then on this, we could trigger some event. So let's say, oh, whoops. Let's just make some custom event just to prove that we're actually interacting. We'll just say call interact. And then off of this, what we'll do is we'll just have it print something. Now notice we're gonna have this print, I'm being interacted with. We're gonna have it print the string, but notice the code isn't in the first person, it's in the interactable actor. So the important thing to keep in mind is now we could say, what did I call it? Call interact. We could call it here, so we should be able to trace to, on the E button, to this interactable actor. Then we're going to call this function on them. You could get away with this, but the problem with this is, let's make sure it works. Yep, then you see in the top left it says I'm being interacted with. The problem with this is, say that you wanted to make a new type of actor. Let's say you wanted to do like a pawn. Let's just do a full character. So we'll do a character and we'll call this interactable character. And it doesn't inherit from the interactable actor. It inherits just from the character class. Let's give it a mesh. Let's just give it the... Oh, of course we don't have the default mannequin because I'm not in the third person. We'll do whatever this tutorial third person orange mannequin is. So you see we have this. We can drag this into the world. And it's of a different class type. We could still make it interactable by going over here and going to the actor tag and giving it the exact same actor tag of interactable. So you'll see, we'll still see the name of this pawn, the interactable character. It's a character class, not a pawn class, whenever we look at it. So interactable character, interactable actor. But if we click the E button on the cube, we see I'm being interacted with. Click the E button on the character, nothing. Okay, well, let's say that we wanted to go in and, have this exact same function inside the character. Is that going to work? Well, of course that's not going to work. Why isn't that going to work? Well, because over here, we're casting to the interactable actor class. Over here, we're still casting to the interactable actor class. And so your code is going to get super messy if you want to keep doing, okay, so we have the interactable actor class. Let's say that cast failed, so we could cast to the interactable character class. Nope. not the class, sorry. We want to cast to interactable character object. Then we'll plug this in, and then here we can do call interact. But this is gonna work. The code's gonna get really messy really fast, right? We could even go over here and customize this and say, I'm a character. That's kind of fun. That's what they call, like, if you're a goofball. That's what I was called as a kid. So we say here, I'm a character. I'm being interacted with. So we can do that, but this code is gonna get super messy, super fast if you have different types of classes that aren't inheriting from one another. It's gonna get really messy. So the way that I was taught to do this, and I think it's a really good way to think about how you can leverage interfaces and tags. We're already grabbing the objects that we want to interact with by the actor tag. I learned this from the Game Dev Cave, so I don't think I'm able to link in my description yet. Maybe eventually I'll be able to add links into my YouTube description, but if you don't know the Game Dev Cave, go look up his channel. He has great videos, and he actually taught me this, where what we could do instead is have an interface. So we have our interactable tag. Let's have an interactable interface. So I'm going to call this interactable int. I always put my like HUD, actor, character. I always put that after. Some people put it at the beginning of the name. I don't think it really matters that much, but that's how I name mine. So I'm naming it interactable interface. Now here, let's have a function that we're going to call called call interact. And it's just a function. And this interface just says this function. These functions aren't called, or we don't put the code of the function inside the interface, because essentially what happens is we're going to get rid of this logic here. And we're going to simply call on this actor. Or I call interact. I'm sorry, that's what the function is called. We're doing this call interact function we just created in the interface on this actor, on this actor that we just hit. So we know that it's interactable because it's true. So we should be able to call this interface on the actor. Now, even if you don't, if you forget to add the interface to the actor, it's not going to break anything, right? But it's just our code is going to stop working. So what I'm going to do is to stop replicating code, I'm going to get rid of these events on the actor and the character, these call interact events. And instead, what we're going to do is, because they both have this interactable actor tag, we can also make sure that they both have the interactable interface. So let's do interactable interface. This interface can go on any actor in the world. And so it can go on any actor in the world, and you can actually have this function be called in that actor's blueprints with any code that you want. So we have event call interact, which is now, because we have this interface and we have the actor tag, we can have this, I didn't realize I misspelled that, interacted with there, and then we could do the exact same thing in the character. Here, I'm actually gonna save the character for a second just to prove my point, that if we go here, we're clicking E, I'm trying to click E really loud on the character, nothing's happening. But look, I'm being interacted with, now spelled correctly, on the interactable actor is working. The interactable character, we still need to add the interface. So if we go here, add the interface. Now, I used interfaces for years, but what I always did was I always had an interface for a specific class, which is, I think, a way that you can go about it, especially if your class, if you're just looking to help minimize casts and help maximize efficiency and stuff like that. I still think that works for the projects that I've worked in, but this, you're actually using interfaces for multiple different types of classes, and you're implementing this function differently. So I think this is actually a really smart way that you can go about it. And now you can see, if we go here, the interactable actor and being interacted with, interactable character, I'm a character, you could have whatever logic you want in here, and we only have this one function here. So even if they don't implement the interface, if we forgot to put it there, even with the interactable actor tag, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fail. It doesn't like break your code or anything like that. It just tries to call the interface and it fails and it just doesn't do anything. But now that it does this, we can utilize this functionality of our interact key to basically try and interact with anything. And then if it doesn't hit anything because we hit the air, nothing happens. If it doesn't hit anything because we didn't put the interface on here, nothing happens. So that's just a way to go about actually implementing a pretty efficient interact system pretty quickly. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know in the comments below. If you have a different way of going about this, please let me know as well how you go about this and some different ways to think about it. But this has worked for me, so hopefully it'll help you. So thanks again. This is Hipster GW, and I'll see you in the next one.